This video will demonstrate how to fill out the Word version of the match documentation form for the People's Garden Project grant. So you'll want to start by opening up the match document that your conservation district provided you. And then to start filling in this match documentation form, you want to start in this upper right-hand corner and just fill in the name of your People's Garden Project and the date range for which you're recording either in-kind match labor or cash match. So for this example, we'll do Community Garden Expansion Project. And then this date range, we'll put this as. So then once you've filled in those two things, you can then scroll down and you should see two tables in this document. The first table is going to be in-kind match. And so then in this table is where you'll want to fill in any labor costs that are provided that are put into the project. So whether that's staff time or volunteer time, all of that is going to be recorded in this first table. And then in the second table is the cash match table. So this is where you'll record additional purchases for the project, but these purchases are not things that are funded by the project itself. And so you'll see an example of both of these in this video. So we'll start in this in-kind match table. And in this first column is where you'll write out who volunteered or worked on the project itself. So for this example, we'll just type in the person's name. You can see here you can list more than one person in this first table or in that first column. And then in the second column, you'll want to just kind of briefly describe what task they did for the project. So in this case, let's say they did some project planning and they went out and purchased materials for the project. And then this is in the third column is where you'll put the date or the date range in which this person worked on the project. So let's say this person worked on May 3rd. And then the amount of time spent in this next column, let's say that's 3 hours. And then the valued time per hour is going to be either, if it's a staff member for your organization, it'll be their hourly wage, whatever that works out to be. If it's a volunteer who's working on the project, we can go up and we can see that volunteer time is valued at $28.54 per hour. So we're going to say Jane Doe was a volunteer, so we'll put in $28.54 per hour. And we can just make a note of this, that this is volunteer rate. And then in this final column is the in-kind match amount. So you'll multiply the number of hours they spent working by their valued time per hour, and that'll be the number that you put in here. So if we do 3 times 28.54, we should get 85.62. And so that is one column or one in-kind match for this project. We'll do another example of that. So again, you can't see the column or the names of the columns here, but we know that in this first column is where you put the names of the people working on the project. So in this case, let's say we put two volunteers, Ryan Smith and Sarah Lee. In the second column is where you put in their tasks. So clearing and preparing area for raised beds. You can then put in their date range, so 5/4/22. And so you can put in a date range if these people work over a period of time. If it's not just like one session that they're working, if they work a weekly shift, for example, then you can put in a date range. And in this next column, you put in the number of hours they worked. So let's say they worked 20 hours total, 10 hours per person, just to break it down as far as like how much each person worked. And again, these are volunteers, so we'll use that volunteer rate. And then you'll multiply this 20 hours by the volunteer rate, and we should get 570, 80. And so you can just continue filling out this table as you need. If you run out of rows, you can right click on a row and you should be able to then get this option to insert a row above or below wherever you see fit. And that's how you can add more rows to the table if you need to fill them in more. And once you're done filling in the in-kind match table, you'll then want to sum up your in-kind match amount. So you'll want to add up all of the values in this final right-hand column. So 8562 and 570.80 in this case. And you'll just fill that in here. And so this in-kind match is 656.42. And so that's the first table of in-kind match, which covers labor costs for the project. In table 2 is where you'll then fill in cash match. So additional purchases, again, that are not funded by the project, but are still being used to support the project itself. So let's say we have a purchase of garden books. They were purchased on the 12th of May. And you want to then in this third purpose column to just describe why is this, how is this relevant to the project? How is it related? So in this case, let's say the garden books were purchased by a partner organization to develop a community library of resources. Right, so these garden books in this example are related to the garden expansion project, just in the sense that they will be used and hosted at the garden for all of the community gardeners to use. You'll want to attach documentation of the purchase. So whether that's a receipt or an invoice, you'll say yes here, and then I'll again demonstrate how to attach your receipt. And then you'll want to put in the cash match itself. So however much this item costed. So let's say it was $100. And again, you can continue filling out this table, adding more rows if necessary. And once you finish filling out the cash match, you'll then sum it all up. In this case, we only had one cash match item, so we'll just say $100 here. In this final table is just where you want to sum everything up. So again, the sum of the in-kind match you can take from here, $656.42, or whatever your sum was. And then the sum of the cash match. And then you'll total those two things up together for this final column. And so and then underneath this third table is where if you have a cash match item, you can provide documentation of the purchase. So the copy of the receipt or the invoice. So you can just click below. So then underneath this third table is where you want to insert any documentation of your cash match purchases. So you go insert an image, insert your sample receipt. You can resize it to make sure it fits on the page. And then this document is now ready to submit to your conservation district.